Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here for the AEW review, the AEW Full Gear review of the 7th of November, 2020. Sorry that this is a little late. The last few days have been very hectic, waiting on some things and clients needing my attention more than average or more than I expected anyway. So we move into the pre-show Serena Deeb and Allison Kay NWA Women's Title match. Not a bad match. Not exactly thrilled that Excalibur and Tony Schiavone are the representatives of the brand going into the pay-per-view. Schiavone and certainly Jim Ross would have been better. Really basic match. Deeb is the new NWA Women's Champion. Post-match, Thunder Rosa shows up on stage. Her music hits. Very basic early wrestling. I mean, I'm not a fan of having two women's matches on a show that doesn't need to be there, and also the wrestling itself is extremely basic. Good mat work. Allison Kay is extremely talented. I'm hoping she signs with AEW sooner rather than later. Two women's title matches, though, unnecessary. And to be honest, the AEW Women's Championship is not strong enough to warrant having somebody else. We move on to the main card. Jim Ross joins the announce team. Obviously, also Don Callis, aka what used to be ECW Cyrus, is on the program as well. Kenny Omega and Hangman Page start the show. I'm not necessarily sure if this is a good or bad thing. I could have seen them putting Orange Cassidy in the position. I could have seen them putting even the women's match in the position, although two women's matches back to back would have been bad. But Omega and Hangman Page do have a good match here. Callis joining the team adds something to it. The fact that Jim Ross, a couple of times throughout the show, acknowledged Impact as another brand is also a good idea. AEW is doing it right. They're acknowledging the ring. They're acknowledging the NWA. They're acknowledging Impact. If they can acknowledge ROH, I think then what we'll have is a legitimate competitor to WWE eventually. Anyway, the ring announcer basically rants about all the accomplishments of Kenny Omega. I'm sure it gets over with the fans that already are of Omega, but if there's anybody watching who didn't know who he was, he certainly looks like a strong heel here. The nickname The Cleaner um, is there, and they explain that a little bit. Excalibur, as always, is, you know, clunking around. I think he's by far the worst announcer not in WWE. He mentions, a Japan thing. Excalibur basically says that Omega's heard the critics and he wants to shut them up tonight, finally having a singles match of note. Page looks good physically and emotionally. Omega offers a handshake. That doesn't happen. They basically do a stare down, and Omega does a Rana. Page rolls to ringside. And then there's some strikes by Page and Omega, and then there's a fallaway slam and a nip up. They go to ringside. Omega lands a springboard and moonsault onto Page, which was well done. Omega controls the match for the next several minutes. He then does a standing moonsault and sells the knee. The good storytelling to the degree of if Page had stayed on a little more, that could have been good. Omega hits a flip dive himself, and Don Callis adds so much here. I would have actually loved to have seen Callis in a situation of announcing this whole show over Excalibur, but literally I can think of a dozen people that I would put in the position ahead of Excalibur at this point. Anyway, the acknowledgement that, in fact, Omega doesn't panic. So then they end up fighting on the ramp, and Omega hits a power bomb. There's a pop-up power bomb for near fall, and Callis basically says he's one of the best ever, and also acknowledges that Paige is looking really good. Omega hits Paige with a Tiger Driver, which looks pretty nasty. Near fall there. Omega manages to get the V-trigger ducked out of the way. Paige ducks, hits a spinning forearm. Omega comes back with a discus elbow and a snapdragon. Paige fires back with a lariat, and then the Deadeye for near fall. Paige tries to hit a roll up and a crucifix, and Omega finishes with a one-winged angel for a 3 count. I would have put Paige over in this. I understand that they're pushing Omega. Finally, I understand that the New Japan fans enjoy this. I don't understand Kenny Omega's appeal. I never have. I don't think I will. So then we go to Orange Cassidy and John Silver. I think this match could have gone on first. I understand why it didn't. Chuck Taylor and Trent come out with their buddy Orange. They then return to the back. Cassidy basically taunts Silver. Silver is fired up, running around like he's overdosed on caffeine. Silver's frustrated early. They do a bunch of comedy. They do the Cassidy slow kicks, and the crowd's happy with this. Crowd is as large as AEW's seen in months, at just over 1,000. Then both guys pose a bit. Silver hits Cassidy and actually yanks the pockets out of his jeans. They put him in he puts them in his mouth, his being Cassidy's. Silver slows the pace down, dominates the match for the next several minutes. Cassidy hits a boot to the face, then goes for a DDT, gets blocked, and there's a brainbuster for a 2 count. Why is there a brainbuster in match number 2? Doesn't make sense. Cassidy finally lands a Michinoku driver for a near fall. Silver comes back with a near fall of his own. Cassidy hits the orange punch for a 3 count, and the match is perfectly fine. Then we move to another championship match, this time the TNT variety. They do a really good backstory of basically Darby Allin being shown as a daredevil. I know week after week people complain that I say it's a waste of time that they do all these video packages. I don't mind them on the pay-per-views in case you have first-time viewers. Anyway, then the use of the skateboard is here. Darby is the favorite with the crowd. Cody comes out next. He's accompanied by his wife, his brother, Arn Anderson, the Gun Club, Lee Johnson, and QT Marshall. I don't understand the Gun Club there. Cody offers a handshake, and basically Darby jumps to his feet after that, almost as if he's insulted by the insinuation of the faulty handshake offer. Cody does a cartwheel after some offensive maneuvers, and Darby hangs with him early in a wrestling level. Cody is overconfident throughout the match. Arn tells him to use muscle and power. Ross says that Cody must become an in-ring bully. So they're kind of teasing heel, but not really. He takes Darby down again, offers the handshake, and then this time Darby takes the hand and uses it to grab a near fall. Lots of acrobatic stuff here. Cody gets caught with a dive by Darby at a point. Cody catches Darby on the top rope and tosses him over the top. onto the ramp. Cody went to dominate for several minutes, coming ahead with mat work because of experience advantage. Darby teases a comeback. Cody cuts him off, kicks him in the jaw, set him with a crossroads. Darby escaped and pulls off the turnbuckle pad, so he's getting frustrated. They're telling a really good story here in that both guys are getting frustrated. There's a good build to that. And then both kind of do a good bit of selling. Avalanche crossroads across the ring, and Darby rolls out. Darby's arm is under the bottom rope during the cover of that. That saves him there. Cody is frustrated. He takes off his weight belt, and then basically Shivani acknowledges that Cody is getting overly upset. Darby yanks it and trips Cody, scores a near fall with it, jackknife cover. Darby gets another bunch of near falls, including a float over stunner and a coffin drop for a near fall there. Cody is basically doing a lot of selling here. Darby lifts him and throws an elbow to the side of his head. And then they basically do a series of near falls on both guys. Anyway, Darby gets a 3 count on one of these exchanges. Cody takes the belt from the ref, walks over to Darby, and Arn turns his back on Cody at ringside, disappointed. And basically, emotion overcomes Darby, and Cody kneels down, presents him the belt. Excalibur basically says this is the new face of TNT. That's a bit of an overstatement. Anyway, really good match, worth going out of your way to see. Taz comes out, says he's had enough of Cody and his management style. He basically says he's going to throw up. And then Ricky Starks and Brian Cage come out. They attack Cody and Darby after their long match. They also attack Arn Anderson to get extra heel heat on them. They try to break the arm of Darby in a car door. Will Hobbs runs out with a chair to break this up, and ultimately to save Darby Allin. Really, really good segment all the way around. Then we go to Dasha interviewing QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes, focus on Allie, and he basically calls her anything but successful. He asks for a bunkhouse match with Butcher and Blade on Dynamite, and that's been granted. Not necessarily a fan of that, and that promo didn't belong here, but whatever. Then we go to Hikaru Shida and Nyla Rose with Vicky Guerrero. Not a fan of this match at all, but I wasn't expecting to be going in. Shida with a lot of offense early, and Rose is sent through the barricade. Vicky Guerrero manages to clip Shida from behind, and Rose takes over, has the heat for several minutes. Shida lands a suplex for a near fall. Good strength from Shida, but it's not really believable with the size difference. Shida hits a running knee. Rose blocks that. Shida lands a crossbody and goes for another suplex. Shida blocked and lifted, gets lifted onto the shoulders of Rose, and she does an overhead slam for near fall. Shida basically uses leverage and body positioning to get her shoulder up. Vicky's frustrated at ringside, and it shows. Vicky's good at being frustrated, but I still don't understand the pairing with her and Nyla. Rose pulled up, put a leap over the top rope with a flying knee to the back of Shida's knee. This is just awkward looking. She continues to work her over and works over the leg of Shida. Rose slows the pace down, and then they use the buckle and the rest of the ring. Sheeta comes back and lands a top rope drop kick for a near fall. Sheeta lands an Avalanche Falcon Arrow. Again, these power moves from Sheeta don't make sense with the size difference with Rose. Then she says she's got this, hits a running knee. Vicky tries to pop up again, botching her own spot, and then Rose knocks Sheeta off the apron. Vicky wound up grabbing a kendo stick. Ref gets involved, yanks that away. Sheeta goes after Rose, and Rose gets thrown into Vicky and the barricade again. Falcon Arrow for near fall from the champion. Rose hits a running knee for another near fall. And, Shivani tries to cover it, saying that Sheeta's knee was hurting and she can't cover this. Sheeta lands a running knee to the back of Rose and a few knee lifts to the chin and covers her for the 3 count. There's no reason this should have gone 14 minutes, but it did. Vicky ends up yelling at Nyla Rose afterwards. And really sloppy, useless match. Next match, FTR, Wheeler and Harwood versus the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick, Tag Team Championship. Basically, Excalibur's putting over the fact that Matt comes in with a cortisone shot in his knee. Basically, Jim Ross buries the fact that they banned Tully Blanchard from ringside, says that managers are meant to attack. And FTR controls the match early. Harwood bled after getting punched and then sent to the ring post. The Bucks held his hand and kicked it. Basically, Dax yanks Matt away from the ropes, goes to the floor. Dax gets his hand wrapped. He's in a lot of pain. He's selling really well. Either that or he actually did catch himself. Actually blurred the lines for me a little bit. Cash chops away at Matt and then elbow dropped his leg. A few minutes later, Dax superplexed Matt, and Dax tries a small package for a near fall. Dax pops up, and then they go back to the floor. Dax continues to sell the hand for the majority of the contest here. Dax lands against ringside barricade and throws his own partner back in. They use momentum. Champions are in control. They slow things down. Matt gets a tag. Nick takes on both Dax and Cash in ring and at ringside. FTR takes over. Dax goes for a superplex. Nick slips free and avoids Cash. And then Matt spears Cash. And things are kind of a bit goofy. Rapid fire stuff. And they do a lot of wrestling, counter wrestling, near falls. And I mean, this match, it's I don't want to call every spot because you have to see it. It's one of the better matches. I'm not a Bucks fan, but I was in this match. And that seems to be it. I like the Bucks in pay-per-view matches. I like the Bucks when they're with a team that they've told a story with. I don't like them in any other way. Anyway, Flying Bulldog by Dax off Cash's shoulders, almost like the old Steiner thing. Bucks rally and knock Cash out of the ring. They hit a twist of fate and swanton do the Bucks, and a series of near falls. Crucifix after many moves. Matt super kicks Dax's hand, and that's bleeding. It's bleeding through the bandages. Interesting to see a guy's hand bleed. Anyway, FTR charged with a combo move, or basically a bunch of tag moves really quick. gets kicked by Nick, and then there's a flip dive on the ramp from Nick to Cash. Matt applies a sharpshooter on Dax in the middle of the ring. Nick put Cash in the sharpshooter on the stage. Ref didn't force a break, and Ross said they should call for a break. Bucks take down Dax in the ring, and Matt basically starts yelling at Dax over not staying down. Series of near falls. Nick clotheslines Cash out of the ring, and then he officially tags in. He lands a dive onto Cash on the floor. Too many dives in the match, but I get it. Excalibur said they can't afford a DQ. Remember, if the Bucks don't win the championships, they can never challenge for them again. And Nick basically tells his brother not to use the weapon. Cash grabs Nick off the apron and power bombs him on the announce table. Dax sets Matt up for a pile driver. Cash tags in and spikes him off the second rope on the reversal. Cash makes a cover. Matt's foot is on the bottom rope here. Cash drags Matt over to the corner, isolates the leg, wrapped it up. Cash leaps off the ropes with a stomp, and Dax applies a inverted figure four with an ankle lock, and then Nick ducks a dive. Nick lands a 450 splash on Dax to break up the submission attempt. Matt scores a near fall, and Cash lands a super kick on Nick, knocks him to the floor. Cash then kicks Matt mid-ring, and Cash then goes for a springboard 450. Matt moves. Matt manages a super kick despite the bad knee. Gets the win. Omega comes out to celebrate with his friends. The Bucks are presented with the tag titles. Ross says that FTR's only loss in AEW is that championship loss. And then, I mean, it was a good match. Worth going out of your way to see. Next is the Elite Deletion. I'm not a fan of this at all. Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. I've actually soured on Guevara because of his feud with Hardy, but that's just me. Sammy drives up in a golf cart that says Spanish God. Guevara is welcomed to the Hardy compound. He says Hardy welcomes him to his own demise, and then Hardy turns off the power to the golf cart. Broken Matt appears. He's in a monster truck. He runs over the golf cart. Hardy says that was a squash job. Ha ha ha. Sammy bashed Matt in the head with a trash can. Match starts. Sammy hits a moonsault over the hood of the monster truck. He goes after Hardy with weapons. Falls count anywhere, but Ross says that would be redundant to admit that. We've obviously figured that out. Sammy suplexes Matt on the grass. Matt fights back with a scepter, and then Sammy springboards at Hardy. Hardy hits a side effect. Matt slides a table in the ring, and Hardy power bombs Guevara through the table. Ortiz runs in, breaks up the cover. Santana beats up Hardy. Private Party are shown arriving. They come in to continue their, I guess, budding feud with Pride and Powerful. Hardy begins to fight back. Private Party get out of the vehicle. They end up helping, and Sammy gives Hardy a twist of fate. Hardy then pulls fireworks out and lights fireworks off. wrestlers duck and take cover from this. And Guevara lights a tiki torch, blasts Hardy with him. Yes, this is that goofy. Hardy ducks and charges at Sammy. Private Party and Santana Ortiz battle in the ring. Basically, I mean, this is just goofy. Man in a black trench coat appears. It's Hurricane Helms. Gangrel is also here. The wonder is what Hurricane says, what took so long. Hardy apologizes and says it's long-term storytelling. They had to convince AEW to let them finish this. And Sammy makes a comeback. Calls himself a Spanish god. Sammy and answers a question for reporter Gregory Helms. Sammy super kicks him and throws him into a nearby pond. Private Party battles Gangrel, and then Helms comes back as Hurricane. Ross said Helms has always been a great swimmer. Helms battles Gangrel. Santana bashes all of that, and then Hardy gets hit with a bat at ringside. Private Party. Jim Ross wonders if Private Party even knows who Gangrel is. I wonder if half the people watching at home know who Gangrel is. Ross says that Gangrel hasn't changed. Sammy uses a mallet and they end up in a storage garage. Door shuts. Hardy's inside. There's another wrestling ring in there. And then Sammy uses a chair on Hardy. And then Sammy unties a turnbuckle and rams Hardy into it. And Sammy then wraps the bottom rope around Hardy's neck. Ref asks Hardy if he wants to quit. Sammy put Hardy through a table, and they climb a ladder, and they leap off into a flip splash maneuver onto the table for a near fall. Hardy comes back, twist of fate. Hardy spears Sammy off the ring apron right through a table. Sammy's bleeding from the back of the head, ouch, because he hits the pavement pretty hard. Hardy jabs Sammy in the eye with the leg of a chair, also ouch. Hardy took Sammy's body and sets him up for a chair shot to the back of the head, smashes him with a chair, scores a 3 count, and basically this is horrible. This didn't need to be there. It doesn't do anything for either guy. At least they paid it off. Lance Archer's up next. He beat someone up through a brick wall. Jake Roberts says he needs to feed his man, and he doesn't want food. He wants people. He said he needs to serve him something so that he can feed them the monster. And he says the slaughter is coming beneath his boot. And he says never throw rocks at glass houses. And Archer said he's throwing boulders. And then they do the everybody dies line. MJF and Jericho. Jericho gets his normal ring entrance. MJF gets a special ring entrance of his own. He basically... MJF's the heel. Jericho's the babyface. Jim Ross wonders if MJF is going to be revealed as soft. MJF gets cocky after hitting some offensive maneuvers, and then they go to the floor. Jericho uses the barricade again. Shivani says that there's a lot of arrogance in both guys. Jericho whips MJF into the ring post, and Jericho goes for the Jesus effect, but MJF ducks. Jericho hits the ring post, and then MJF works over the arm, and he basically says that Jim Ross says he doesn't think Jericho can win with one arm. And then you continue to see MJF go after the arm. Jericho comes back with a double axe handle, a lion salt, lots of back and forth mat wrestling. MJF always coming out a little bit ahead, but not by much, maybe half a step. Jericho applies the walls of Jericho mid-ring. MJF sells this really well. He does get a break, and then Jericho hits a codebreaker for near fall that gets the crowd going. Wardlow runs out, gives MJF the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and then that ultimately leads to some cheating, and MJF gets a roll up and a pin, which leads to MJF officially being in the inner circle, but not before doing the old Eddie Guerrero cheat spot where he feigns being hit with a chair and all of that. Anyway, so we. Anyway, so we